Welcome to the Fish House Nation podcast presented by Catch Cover, your home for ice fishing news, tips, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Chris Larson.
Hello and welcome to the Fish House Nation podcast. Today we're visiting with Dax Szegda, a guide from Northwest Wisconsin. We're going to be talking ice fishing on the Chetek area lakes. Dax, welcome to the Fish House Nation.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Fish House Nation. Appreciate being on tonight.
Dax, first of all, just tell me a little bit about the Chetek areas and the waters that you fish there.
The Chetek area, the city of Chetek, is surrounded by a chain of 6 lakes. We are located in the eastern side of Barron County, right next to Russ County. We are north of Eau Claire, 45 minutes, northeast of Minneapolis, approximately an hour and 45 minutes, south of Hayward, 50 minutes.
So the folks that are in that Twin Cities metro area can get to you pretty quickly. Madison, Milwaukee, all those areas can get to you in really less than a half a day's drive and get up there and do some fishing up in that area. You said there's 6 lakes on the chain. Can you tell me a little bit about those lakes?
They're all relatively different. We got a really long one on the northwest side, which we call Prairie. The chain is kind of shaped like a gigantic Y. The chain is approximately 11 miles long from north to south. I live on the bottom part, which is on the west side would be Prairie. That's where the tornado went through 4 or 5 years ago now. And then to the east of Prairie is a gigantic peninsula of land. And then you have Mud Lake, or they call it Ojaski. South of that is the deepest lake in the chain, which would be called Pokegama. And then you come to a bottleneck, and then it opens up into the main lake, which would be Lake Chetek, where the city is closest to, and where I live across the street from. And then to the south of Lake Chetek is a big peninsula, and you have 10 Mile. And then to the far east of my house would be relatively a mile. You have a small lake called Moose Ear, which makes up the 6 lakes chain in the Chetek chain of lakes.
So a lot of options there, a lot of different places to go out and what a line. With those 6 different lakes, which one is your favorite? Which is the one that you like to fish?
It's actually a seasonal thing, but I think my favorite in the spring would be definitely Prairie or Mud Lake. Like I said, Prairie's on the west, Mud Lake is on the northeast corner. Pokegama I don't fish a lot in the spring or summer. I enjoy fishing there in the winter more, along with Lake Chetek. They're more basin-style lakes, not a lot of weeds, so it's a little easier for you to eliminate water rather than looking for extra structure to fish for or fish with or where fish might be.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that structure. You said those 2 lakes that you like to fish for ice are more basin-oriented. But what is it like out there? What is that lake like? I mean, is there's a bunch of drop-offs? Is there lots of kind of saddle type of things? What type of program you typically fish when you're going out during ice season?
On Pokegama, it's actually a cool lake. There's current. It's not like Mississippi River current, but there is a flow of current. We have a dam on the southwest corner of Lake Chetek. But there is a little bit of current, which I think attracts fish always. That comes south through Pokegama. Pokegama is the deepest part's like 22 feet. It has cribs. It has islands. It has points. A lot of sunken timber and a lot of hard bottom areas. And then connected to that underneath the bridge would be Lake Chetek. 90% of Lake Chetek is probably basin orientated. There's cribs on the east bank. There's cribs on the south bank where I am closest to living. There's flooded timber on the west bank, and then there's one giant sandbar in the north middle of Lake Chetek. But as far as like weed growth and structure orientated, like if you're a mapped fisherman, say for example, Lake Mille Lacs, if you went to Lake Mille Lacs, you could find 60, 70, 80 really beautiful spots that look great on the map. The chain of lakes is kind of not like that. It's more of you have to fish to find the fish rather than just looking at a map, dissecting it and saying these 5 spots look phenomenal. It's totally different. It's a cool lake, cool chain of lakes to fish because you have to always be on your A game in order to have a good or otherwise bad day out here.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question. I'm glad that you led into it that way. How do you normally fish that area? I mean, what's a typical day on the lake with you like when you're going out for ice? What is kind of the strategy and the game plan as you guys set off onto the hard water?
My buddies and I, we always search for. Well, to back up a second, the Chetek Chain of Lakes is predominantly known for beautiful panfish. We have a walleyes for Chetek program in the city. Our city raises funds for stocking walleyes. There's bass fishing tournaments all summer long, but I think a majority of the people like to tour the lake. There's a lot of real estate. There's a lot of fully mature hardwoods. But as far as fishing goes, I think the panfish reign supreme. Excellent on the table. Normally they're biting, and you can get kids, adults, grandparents involved, and everybody can have a good time. There's some absolute monster panfish and crappies in the system, and we go at it as hard and as long as we can for that, 8.5 hour daylight period in the winter that it allows from December, the start of December until maybe February when we start getting longer days. But we all have AquaView pocket cams. We all take our boat hummingbirds off and put them on our four-wheelers, and we run and gun as best we can until we locate active fish in areas that we've drilled out, maybe 20 holes, 30 holes, or 40 holes. But we very rarely sit and wait. We do more of the hunting than the sitting and waiting for the basin-style fish, whether it be on Pokegama or Lake Chetek. Prairie is more of a crib-style spawning area style of lake. A lot of flooded timber on the very north end. A lot of people talk about Wolf's Den at your local bait stores in town. That's the top of Prairie, which has probably 100 acres of flooded timber and like 6 to 11 feet of water. A lot of people fish up in that area, and we're all hunting for those world-class bluegills, and there's plenty of them out there. I think the chain of lakes is roughly 3,500 acres. So there's a lot of water, a lot of places for them to hide. We have active bogs that float and sink in the summer and the winter. So it's just a really, really unique area that I didn't grow up fishing, so to speak. I grew up fishing Minnetonka and Mille Lacs. So this is a challenge for me every day. I've been here for almost 6 years now. But I do have some buddies that have the same mentality that I do, and we just pretty much get after it every chance that we can.
All right, that's cool that you fished kind of the Twin Cities metro area. What brought you out to Chetek?
I grew up in Fridley, Minnesota, which would be a kind of north suburb. I was about 9 miles from downtown. My uncle lived on Lake Minnetonka. My grandfather was a diehard walleye guy, so I fished a lot on Mille Lacs. I moved to Wisconsin in 2000 to St. Croix Falls, which is on the east part by Taylor's Falls. And my mom moved to Missouri, so I stayed with a baseball friend of mine. I met my future wife in 2009, and she is a registered nurse. She got a job in Eau Claire, and we bought our house in Chetek April 1st of 2015. But fishing has been in my blood since I was 4 years old, and I am 43 now, so I've been fishing for almost 40 years.
Very, very cool, Dax. So panfish is the big draw out there. What are your favorite lures for fishing crappies and bluegills when you're out on Chetek?
My favorites are definitely, I love Eurolarva, red or white. I use a lot of natural colored baits. I personally don't get crazy with like lime greens and crazy pink jig heads, and I just keep it natural. I keep it browns. I do like red with white spots, but like browns, blacks, stuff like that. My tackle boxes are very simply organized. But what I put on the business end of those, whether it be like a jig or a spoon, I do like the Euro larva. I think our system is healthy due to the fact there's so many bugs. It's just a very soft bottom orientated chain of lakes. There are hard bottom areas, but I think there's predominantly more soft. So there's a lot of bug activity. And in order for these panfish to get big, they need to eat bugs. We don't have a huge minnow source. We don't have a huge perch source in our chain of lakes. So I think they're just bug eaters, and they eat as many as they humanly possibly can. And what better to mimic a little bug than be like a white Euro larva or a red Euro larva. I do use a lot of plastics. Panfish Pursuers is probably my favorite plastics company. They are out of Winona, Minnesota. There's 3 gentlemen that own that company, and they make a lot of plastics that mimic microscopic bugs. And when you're trying to fool big panfish, whether it be crappies or bluegills, you have to be on your A game in order for you to get those fish to go. And that's pretty much what we like to do. We target big fish. We like to catch big fish. We like to let big fish go. So that's kind of our goal each and every time we're out.
Awesome. What is that bite like when things are going at its best? What's it like fishing out on Chetek?
It's it's probably one of the craziest places I've seen in the spring. When your electronics are correct and you're dialed in, you could be scanning over spawning flats where you might see 60, 70, 80 spawning fish at one time. And you can target those fish, or you can target those fish pre-spawn. But in the spring, you would not be shocked to catch 20, 30, 40, 50 bluegills, and they might be all over 9 inches. I take my wife and daughter out quite a bit in the spring. We don't harvest any fish, but it's just such a joy to watch my wife and daughter reel them in. I mean, they're beautiful. They're at their biggest. They're at their heaviest. And we do, Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. I video them reeling in these humongous panfish. And it's just a joy to watch all your work and all your practice and all your planning come together for a couple of nights of just I've never been to a panfish place of this caliber. And Big Round, which is west of my house, approximately 45 minutes, holds the state record in Wisconsin for pumpkin seed, I believe, over a pound. That's been broken twice in the 20 years I've lived in Wisconsin. But I've never seen that many fish in that small of an area at that particular time in the spring. It's truly amazing. And then obviously the schools follow suit in the winter as well, especially in the basin areas. You can get schools of 100 fish pretty regularly.
Very cool. Is there a good night bite on Chetek? Is that something that people are doing through the ice?
On prairie, yes. The water is totally. It's kind of like the east arm and the west arm of Minnetonka. The west arm is dirtier water. The east arm is clear water, big island. So I would kind of compare the west arm would be prairie on the Chetek chain. It's very clear. We use our underwater cameras a ton on that particular lake. I would say that Pekagama, Moose, or Mud Lake, Pekagama, Lake Chetek are probably, they're not dirty, but they're stained water systems. So the cameras they don't do very well, cloudy or on sunny days. And then 10 Mile is the shallowest of all 6. And that one is, that one you can use your camera a lot as well. But as far as night bites go, other than walleyes, we're fortunate enough to not have to target those fish after hours because they're pretty active during the day. And I think that's when the bug life is the most active as well. Sometimes from what we've seen on our vexillars, sometimes from what we've seen on our hummingbirds and what we've seen on the underwater camera.
You kind of got into walleyes there a few times, but tell me about the other species on the lake. I know panfish is the big thing.
Yep.
A buddy from Chicago who's been coming up to Chetek for years because he loves to come up there and fish crappies. But tell a little bit about the other species in the chain.
Every year, I would say 2, 3, or 4 pike are caught that are legitimately over 40 inches. You always hear good reports of walleyes, kind of regardless of season. I think the walleyes are predominantly stocked fish, so they don't truly hold to a piece of structure. They're a little more nomadic, and they're a little more willing to cooperate and pull on someone's line. Like I said, we stock walleyes every fall, usually at the end of October and November for the city. Bass fishing is a huge draw. There's a tournament in May, 2 in July, 1 in August, and 1 in September on the Chetek Chain of lakes. Beautiful bags of largemouth predominantly, occasional smallmouth slips in there. But the largemouth population on Chetek Chain is definitely not lacking. We have a really good school of perch. We have an ice fishing tournament in January every year. There's always over a 1 pound perch. There's always over a 1 pound crappie, 3/4 to a pound bluegill. Last year there was 2 pike weighed in over 16 pounds in that derby, which is around President's Day. And there's always a 3 or 4 pound bass let go. So definitely a very, very, very healthy population of fish. Seems like they all work well together. There's no stunted growth or anything like that. You can catch different sizes of fish throughout the year. Definitely working on our walleyes to have the population, stay in the system, but you can target all 5 species in the chain, and you can definitely be rewarded with some very, very fun days.
Chetek is kind of a big tourist town. There's lots of resorts around. Tell us a little bit about the city. If somebody were to make the trip, what are they going to find when they get to Chetek?
If you're coming from the south end of Chetek, you're going to be pulling in a couple gas stations on the south end. Great bait store, keg and cork, gas, alcohol. They have a bait store. They have minnows. Then you go north, you got Quick Trip. Then we have our Main Street. And on Main Street, right after Quick Trip, we have the Rod and Gun Shop. We have a German diner. Rod and Gun Shop always has good stuff. Fresh bait, a lot of fishing tackle, a lot of Chetek style, like T-shirts and memorabilia like that. Then we have our grocery store and then our local shops. We have a Lake Country Marina in town. If your boat ever needs to get work done, they have their own gas pumps. They have guys on call daily, whether they have to service your boat at your dock or you can bring it in and have them service them at the shop. It's literally right on the water. There's 5 or 6 active restaurants on the chain of lakes. There's one on the very top, there's one on the very bottom, and then they're all intertwined in the middle. I believe there's 3 on the Pekegama and Mud Lake part. There's one on Prairie, which is the Wolf's Den, and then there's one by my house, which is called Reds. Like you mentioned, the resorts there's 20 to 25, I would imagine. I've personally not stayed in any of them because I live in the city, but it will not be hard to find lodging. There are RV places to bring your RV. There's camping sites if you want to camp for the weekend. The snowmobile trails, the 4-wheeler trails you can take from Chetek all the way to the top of Wisconsin, which would be either Superior or the UP. There's endless possibilities. A lot of stuff to do. We have stuff in the summertime. Every Thursday and Sunday there's a hydroflight ski show. So there's always something for the family to be entertained by.
Lots of cool stuff, Dax. Is there something about Chetek that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you about tonight?
I think it's a great family place. It really is. When my family and I walk through town, everyone's friendly. They always say hi. They're very welcoming, regardless of if you're out of town or not. Obviously, it's busy in the summer. Our city is normally 1,800 people, and it's probably about 10 to 15,000 in the summer. We welcome all the people into town. We hope they enjoy their stay, and we hope that they come back the following year. All of our small businesses in town really appreciate the business. We really appreciate the people coming to the city, and we really appreciate the people enjoying the city and all what we have to offer. We do the best we can. Small town, but rural living, cabin country. It's a hard place to not live at. It's a hard place not to stay at. It's really it's very relaxing. You get to see the stars every night. Like I said, I grew up in Minneapolis, so I haven't really thought about moving back west in a very long time.
Sounds like you kind of got the cat by its tail over there in Chetek. And if people want to find out more about you,
you can go on Facebook or Instagram under my first and last name, which would be Dax Szegda. I also have a website, daxsfishingguideservice.com. Phone number is 715-553-1501. I can certainly direct you in the right, whichever direction you'd like to go as far as amenities or where to stay or where to fish or what we have around our city. There's definitely lakes to the east and to the north or to the south that I can direct you toward to. I try to get all over. I try to cover all the bases so I can help as many people out as I can as they're traveling to the town, traveling away from the town, or just passing through. It's a very friendly place. It's very warming, and very welcoming. So it's sometimes it's probably hard for people to leave.
and you can also find Dax on Instagram. That's where I found him. And his IG handle is DAXSZEGDA. That's Dax Szegda on IG. And if you want to know what's going on in Chetek and in that area and what's going on with Dax, you can follow him there. He's always updating stuff, always lots of cool stuff on Dax's Instagram. Dax, thanks so much for joining the Fish House Nation podcast. Really appreciate having you on.
I had a blast, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for thinking of me. And I hope I answered your questions the best I could. And I hope to see a lot of people in the future, especially you, Chris.
Thanks for listening to the Fish House Nation podcast presented by Catch Cover. For more ice fishing content, visit our blog at catchcover.com.